Bad jokes.
Good morning. It's 9:30 a.m. Thursday, June 8th. Richland County Board of Commissioners is now in session. I'm Richland County Commissioner Cliff Mears, joined by Commissioner Tony Vero, Commissioner Darrell Banks, our clerk Stacy Crawl. We have our County Administrator Andrew Keller, and we have a number of guests with us this morning. We have a contingent from Richland County Children's Services. We have Nikki Harless, Kevin Goshi, and Drew Miller. We also have Clint Knight joining us from Richland Chamber, and Carl Hunnell from Richland Source, Greg Kale from WMFD, and online we have Al Lawrence from the News Journal. Our first order of business is to discuss goings on in children's services and the potential for a levy renewal. So with that, you may be the spokesman, Kevin.
Okay, Carl.
Turn it over to you.
Yeah, good morning. We're here this morning to request that the Board of Commissioners consider approving a resolution of necessity so that we can do our mill property tax levies that's due to expire at the end of calendar year 2024. The levy generates about $2.3 million per year, which is about 20% of our revenue. It also allows us to pull down a significant amount of federal funding. So it's not just a 20% loss if we don't get this renewed. We'll feel it in the loss of federal funds as well.
Kevin, I was trying to follow that in your budgetary projections and submissions before today. So do you include the drawdown money? Because I'm showing in your line item revenues that it generates probably about 3.5. You just said 2.5. I was trying to.
We've got two levies. They're both one mill. They're separated 5 years apart.
You include both of those in that line item then, both levies, the one you're here for generates the 2.5, but there's actually two that go into that line item. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So. Let's see. 2.3 million, 20%. I guess.
I'm sorry,
It's okay. I
I didn't understand. That's what I wanted.
for any other questions or not, but that's the reason why we're here this morning.
Nikki, what's the trends as far as how many children you're taking care of?
Going up. I mean, we had the other placement. Just actually, we met with Cliff, in April?
Right, yes, I'm not gonna be questions. I've met with you
Yeah, and
for the numbers and your
we got custody
intake.
kids since that time. And it went up, what? A day?
$1,300 a day for those 8 kids.
So it just depends, we have no way to project, but trend is going up consistently at this point, not down.
That's only a small portion of what you do.
Placement costs and salaries, yeah.
They're two very big sections of our budget. So on April 18th, when we met with Commissioner Mears, we had 134 kids in our custody at a cost of $8,700 a day. As of this week, we're up to 142 kids at a cost of $10,000 per day.
Legal custody. Meaning a judge has granted either
Temporary custody.
temporary custody for the legal while finding a permanent or a definitive solution.
Right, like working a case plan with the parents to try to get them back. And then if they can't get them back, then they will go to permanent custody at some point and then adopt it out if they can't get them back. If they get them back within a year.
So, obviously understanding these are projections, revenue could go up based on more federal funding, expenses. But I do see a projected negative trend, and Kevin, you're the numbers guy, so you're a lot smarter than me. But I'm showing right now, as of now, your budgeted 2023 carryover which shows a fairly substantial reduction just from 2022 to 2023. We project to end the year at 6.9 million. And then 2028, and thank you for providing the information we requested. You show a deficit of $2.3 million. Now that's over 100% reduction, by my math, around 133%, maybe, give or take. Is that, I mean, do we think that's real?
If nothing else would, that's real. And now that includes, we have 97 positions budgeted. As of today, we're down about 4. When we did this, when we did the 2023 budget in November of 2022, we were down about 9 positions. So, you know, if we were to fill all those jobs and keep them full for that whole time period, that's a real number.
And if our placement costs continue to rise like they
So it's a
have.
trend of additional placement costs and by the way, your salary projections were very reasonable. They were about 3%, right? So oftentimes it's not that I don't look at salaries, people need to be compensated appropriately, but 3% is certainly reasonable right now, given what inflation is. So I felt your salary projections were more than reasonable. And I looked at it and going, holy cow. I mean, they have a pretty healthy carryover, which is what you want, right? So that way you don't go to the taxpayers and ask for additional monies. But if we're sitting here in 5 years and you're looking at a 2 million deficit, I mean, that's gonna necessitate some pretty serious conversations, right? And I understand their projections, so I'm not gonna hold you to what you say now if we're all here 5 years from now. Kevin's probably like, I don't want to be here 5 years if that happens. But I mean, you feel that's a pretty solid projection of a $2 million deficit?
Again, yes, if we were to fill 97 positions and keep them filled 100% through that 5 years, that's going to happen
Which we haven't been able to do though for a long
for
time.
a very long.
Yeah, I know you don't want to root for gaps in headcount, but you're sort of like, okay, we're saving money here, right?
How we would have to spend money, right?
Right.
Through attrition, when people leave, we would have
Sure.
to, have less staff and try to manage.
Right, so like I did a calculation based on average vacant positions, Drew tracks the number of positions every pay period. 2013 through the end of 2022, we were averaging about 8 or so positions vacant, translated to about $2 million saved, if you want to call it saved, just in salaries. That did not include retirement system contributions, Medicare, health insurance, any of that stuff. So it could have been a whole lot worse.
Starting off a Thursday on positivity, right? Kevin, I don't have any more questions. Respect your projections. You always do a great job and this was very thorough. Again, I know with increased placements, it's the money to take care of kids moving forward. It's you guys, so I don't have any more budgetary questions.
I'll say that you shared with me your capital replacement budget. It's reasonable, expensive. Between the next 3 years, we're looking at $2.5 million, $2.4 million with the vehicle, and we've broken it down to electronics, HVAC. Nothing looks out of line. It's got a lot of vehicles, but I've been around a while. 10 years plus. Got to keep equipment running to run the show.
We know better than others.
Yes, we do.
Since the deed is in there and the commissioner's name, correct? Building,
Yes,
we do need to do some renovations to the restrooms building. So I don't know if we need to get, you guys own the building, so.
I don't think you had that on your capital
We're gonna
budget.
be looking at our restrooms in this building too.
We didn't put it on there, did we?
That would be in addition to what you submitted. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Okay. I can call for The vote to approve the resolution for necessity for the renewal levy for children's services.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
for Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Let's ask for any questions from the media. What do you think, Carl?
When was this particular levy, when was it first?
In 1984.
It's been renewed every 5 years.
The last time this was on the ballot was 2013, and it was replaced at that time, but otherwise it was renewals, yes.
And this is just a straight renewal request.
Correct.
Are you guys one of the agencies that the bulk of your money comes from? What's the? For child welfare, I mean, it's still. I know one time the agency was, and I forget the terminology,
Protect Ohio.
yes. What's the shape of federal support now?
So we're back under traditional Title IV funding now, which is roughly 60% of our placement costs for Title IV eligible children will be reimbursed by the federal government. So you remove a child who has whose parents aren't making much money, then they probably will qualify for Title IV.
4E.
Yes, Roman numeral 4 dash. It's a section of the Social Security Act. So that's, it's pretty flat funded as far as that goes. We did receive a 6.2% bump in the reimbursement rate during the pandemic. That started January 1st of 2020, and it will be phased out gradually throughout this year until it's back down to a regular 60% amount by the end of 2023.
So our reimbursement's really not less since we stopped being Protect Ohio agency, right? Federal reimbursement. About the same because of all the kids we have in care and up since then. If we had less kids in care, we would, we'd probably be hurting more, right? Reimbursement wise.
Well, I mean, it's a percentage, so you're not going to win the monetary battle by adding more kids because you still got to cover the 40% from local dollars.
Right.
I mean, Protect Ohio was based upon you get a bulk amount. Had nothing to do with population, so.
Which was nice, yeah, because you could use it to do prevention work and whatever you needed it to be.
Right.
But then they took that away and now we're back to traditional 4E. How many counties were doing Protect Ohio?
14, I believe.
For a long time, since 1997. So they just took that away. 13,
I
18,
think it was 18.
18.
Is that a federal decision or was that a state decision?
It was a federal decision when the Family First Prevention Services Act got approved. And part of that was doing away with all the Title IV waiver programs. So it wasn't just Ohio that was impacted. There were several states that had programs.
Then we had the whole harmless money too, right? That they've given us because of the transition. Federal government gave us money.
Right. So they passed a law that would hold us harmless to 90% of what we were getting under Protect Ohio, as long as we weren't getting more than what we were getting under Protect Ohio. So in October of 2021, we received $1.1 million as that hold harmless. There's supposed to be a second payment. That's 75% hold harmless, so it'll be less money, but every time I ask about it, the state says we're still talking to the feds. So I don't know what's coming down the pike on that.
What percentage kids that you take in, say, are already eligible?
70. We probably not. No. The majority, right? All they did.
I can get you that number, sir, but I do not have that with me.
If they're not already eligible, you guys are on the hook for 100% of the placement costs. So
That's correct. Yes.
And that's something that's not necessarily in your control. I mean, that's up to the juvenile court judge and. I mean, you might request, sometimes is it true that sometimes you might think custody isn't in order, but the judge does it anyway?
Oh, yes,
It's possible.
especially teenagers. But
So Nick, I know a lot of times to divert those costs, you guys had a very robust kinship program where you try to place children with significant. Is that still the case that you try to keep kids with family as opposed to putting them in a paid placement?
family, anybody the kid has a relationship with, other than having to go to a complete stranger to go to foster care. That foster care is like the last resort for any child in our eyes. We will talk to the kids, we'll talk to the parents, anybody that can come up with that's appropriate to care for the child before we would consider placing foster care. So we meet with family, make that decision together before we take them away and place them.
So that
There are still costs associated with kinship care. Not a matter of just placing them with someone in the program and next of kin, but there's still costs associated with kinship care.
Mhm.
I guess is that, is it harder finding those particular placements? Is that a cause for the rise in your placement costs? Just not being able to find people that are maybe willing or able to care for the kids?
Part of it is because of the, just a generational, trauma and drug usage and that, so the grandparents might be using, right? They might be positive and then we can't place with them. And so we have to drug test and we have to check their records and all that before we. Sometimes that's a problem because they don't get approved as a appropriate caregiver.
You have in kinship now, say versus a year ago, fairly stable.
It is fairly stable. There's more in our custody that are placed with kin because we now get paid. If they agree to become a foster parent, we will pay them until they get their license. And then they'll get the foster care reimbursement once they get licensed as a foster parent. So some people want to do that. They want that, that income to help care for the child. And then they will get the foster care stipend and then they can adopt if it ends up going permanent. They can adopt their relative child, so. Kinship, I'd say is the same, like even the prevention cases, because lots of times our court will give the relative custody instead of us, which is a good thing for the child. And we probably have either informal or court involved, about 100 more kids that could be in our custody if it wasn't for kin taking care of them. So we would have 100 more kids added to our list if kinship providers didn't step up and care for their own families.
Anything else, Carl? Greg, anything else? Al, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
You know, this is something that's very close to my heart. You know that I grew up with two foster sisters as a child, one of which we ended up adopting.
Mhm.
I think the services you provide, I'd be hard pressed to identify more essential services than taking care of our children the way you do. And every time I'm in your office, it breaks my heart to hear the stories that I've been able to share with me. So thank you for all you do. You do amazing work. I had to approve this.
Not done with you yet.
Oh.
Next order of business is to approve the annual permit services sub-grant agreement.
So moved.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
Get that to you. That's okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Move on to other business. We have Jodica coming at 10 o'clock. Can I have a motion to certify the record of proceedings for June 6, 2023?
So move.
Look at topic mental health recovery services board at page 0.02.42. We talk about making a motion to reappoint John Alice, but I don't show Sylvia Jordan in there, Stacy, and I thought we reappointed.
Two different motions.
I'm dumb. Just disregard what I said.
Commissioner,
Remove my amendment.
For all
I know, and that's gonna be on recording now. I'm dumb.
or public record?
so Commissioner Banks moved for a second.
Second.
Mears.
Yes.
Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve requisitions?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
I have a motion to approve the transfers and appropriations.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the yearly maintenance agreement for 911 battery backup? And I understand this is the same agreement as in years past.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
I have a motion to accept the resignation letter from JFS employee Jennifer Williams, effective June 26th.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
I have a motion to appoint LEPC members. We have 22 members before us. Of August 9th through August 13th of.
So moved.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
And we've got before us to approve an intergovernmental agreement with Crawford County IOA. Is this something you wanted to discuss? Clint?
I just want to make sure there weren't any other questions about it.
I have a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
And we've got a motion to approve the withdrawal of Tracy Oswald. Board and also appoint Wolford to that board. It's the same document. I think we can take a motion to approve both of those together.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
Hey, is there any other business to come before the Board of Commissioners before we go into recess for 6 minutes for a public hearing with Jodica on CDBG? Questions, comments, anything? Okay, we'll go into recess until 10 o'clock. Well, good morning. Again, it's 10 o'clock, 10:01. The Richland County Board of Commissioners is back in session for a public hearing regarding CDBG for 2023. And we have Jodica Shetty, regional planning here with us to share some information about that. So good, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the second of the required 2 public hearings before we submit our application for the Community Development Block Grant allocation that we have received from the state. The total amount that has been allocated to us is $288,000. This is the same amount as our previous round. So the commissioners have the discretion of selecting the projects that they would like to submit under this application. For this round, unlike in the past, we were only allowed to select 2 projects. Additionally, we can do planning activities in addition to these 2 projects. So applications were open. We had it open till May 24th. And then we received 2 applications. One was from Dayspring Assisted Living and then Richland County Transit Board. The Dayspring Assisted Living would like to replace their boilers. It's have 2 boilers right now that are really aging. So for the benefit of the health and the safety of their residents, they would like to have that boiler replaced. It was in their budget, so the total project cost, according to estimates that they have received, is around $112,000. They're asking for a CDBG request of $110,000. Richland County Transit would once again like to continue to assist both disabled and senior citizens with the half price passes that they provide. So this kind of just helps them recuperate some of that lost funding by providing those passes at half cost. So their request is for $75,000. Richland County Regional Planning, along with the City of Mansfield Community Office, will provide grant administration and fair housing. You will see that in the past, we have worked with the City of Mansfield to provide fair housing, complaint resolution, as well as providing training. So once again, I'll be bringing that agreement before this board. You continue to work with them on that, and then grant administration, regional planning will continue to provide grant administration services. This time, for the first time, we're having planning activities under a CDBG grant. I have, I think, 2 projects that I plan to submit with this application. These both came out of the Housing Action Plan. These were both strategies within the plan. The first one is trying to see if we can unify the language in our zoning codes, especially our town. I got a problem, my throat now. Especially our township zoning. Regional planning will work to look through all these zoning ordinances and make sure that language within the zoning ordinance reads very much alike. This was identified as one of the strategies that the county should look at to help with housing development, since we have 13 townships that are zoned, all the incorporated areas are zoned. Developers often struggle with these different zoning texts because they're so different. So looking to see if we can maybe create some uniformity among the texts, especially are the districts called the same one? Does a R1 residential in one township reflect an R1 residential in another township? If it does, then a developer knows that if he's developing in Springfield Township, developing in Washington Township would meet the same requirements. So that was the first planning activity we hope to submit for. The second planning activity hope to present is creating a plan for some workforce development, workforce development housing. What we found during the study was that there's really a lack of trade skills within the community to do some of the rehabilitation that we need to do on our housing stock. So the steering committee has been looking into seeing if there is a program we can set up for LMI persons, especially people coming out of recovery and looking for re-entry, that treats and working with the building unions to see if we can teach them building skills that then we can use to fix up some of the homes that maybe the land bank can acquire and build a rehabilitation program. So kind of putting that program into place, that would be the second planning activity we would apply for. So that's kind of the broad overview of the projects in the application. The application will be submitted by June 14th, no later than. Hopefully we get that in here in the next couple of days.
Wednesday.
Yes. That's all I have, unless there are questions.
Thank you for the recap. No, I've had a couple of conversations since I've been back in the last week about the zoning component, Build Richland. That's essential. I talked to Matt Wallace and Bob Entenman. I understand a couple of townships that are being a little more territorial, but I also understand, and this was new to me, that the state has standard definitions for commercial business, R1, R2, and so on. So I think that the direction we're going is those who have a commonality, which will help facilitate building and development. We're making some progress. I'm having a lunch Wednesday with a couple of folks on the zoning.
Right.
Right.
We're going to put it in the application and hopefully the Office of Community Development use it as a CDBG eligible activity.
Nice.
It does have to tie into the national objectives of the CDBG program, but yeah, we're hopeful.
I think it's only fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions from my fellow commissioners? Okay. Can I have a,
You're in the public hearing.
it's a public hearing, so there's nothing we don't vote on.
We're done. We can end the public hearing and then you can vote.
Are there any comments or questions from the media? Greg, anything?
I don't believe so.
I just want to make sure I understand. There's two projects and then there's two planning activities. They're all part of the same application. You said there was 288,000 in CDBG money. Is that for the two activities, the two projects and the planning
Activities and the administration, so all together.
So you're sending in four things, two projects,
Two projects, two planning and admin. Yes.
and those
I
things.
don't want to speak for Carl, but so none of these activities or projects will not be funded. So this is,
Yes. So we are hopeful unless the state has issues with any of the projects meeting what they call the national objectives of serving low and moderate income or eliminating slum and blight projects.
For the housing rehab and something update, how would that money specifically? How would that money?
So we, in the application, I plan to apply 30,000 for the zoning updates. So what we would do is the state would require a 60-40 or at best a 50-50 match to it. So we would use that for staff. Our staff would kind of be an in-kind match for what the state would provide. And then for the other program, which is the rehabilitation, we'll have to see who we would use as a sub-recipient for that activity. We've kind of had discussions, which are still very preliminary with NECIC and UMADOC, who seem like the best fit for that program. And then working with the labor unions to kind of facilitate that training.
So your staff would be, part of the 30,000 would be working with the townships to try to unify, so to make meetings and.
Yeah,
like that.
and then in both cases, there has to be a deliverable at the end. So we would have, what I am envisioning is a model township regulation. And then the townships could adopt that model resolution.
Do you include some of the career centers who have adult programs?
Yes, that's what the plan will do. It'll identify who the partners will be. So again, having those conversations with which are the trade unions would be interested, which are the career centers which would be interested, how is JFS maybe going to be involved? Because I think there's a lot of workforce development money set aside for training. So this program the plan will set up how do we utilize those workforce training dollars to build the program.
So Jodica, you said the application deadline is Wednesday. Do we know when a decision will be made?
We don't have to right now, all the application. Oh, you mean from the state?
State, correct.
So once we apply, they review the applications. It's usually by August, they let us know. And if you look at the sheet that I provided, if they say no to any of our programs, we can either pick an alternate planning activity, or we can pick, like in the past, we've done emergency home repairs. So if they say no to any of our projects, then we can come back and say we'll do an emergency home repair project.
But optimistically, they'll say yes to everything.
Yes.
And we would get the money when? Do we know?
Usually by September. So it is a reimbursement program. So we get approved and then they'll reimburse us for the project.
Like my mind, my concern was the boiler at Dayspring, if it would be, if the money was approved in time for a new boiler before winter comes.
Yes, that's the plan. Yeah, it should be applied by September. And then I usually do what is called an environmental clearance. So once I submit that and get the request for release of funds approved. So by November, December of 2023, we should be approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Timing, but, okay. Al, any questions from the News Journal?
Yeah, I have a couple. Jodica, that boiler, since we're on that subject, would that cover the full cost of the boiler replacement?
Yes, that was the estimate, the full cost. Have two
Okay,
boilers currently.
All right, I wasn't sure the way it was described. Can you, I got the money for the two projects, but how much of that 288 is being allocated for the planning and the administration?
Yeah, so it's 50,000 for the planning and 53,000 for administration and fair housing.
Okay.
We have a standard fair housing program that we have to deliver that includes like 5 or 6 trainings. And then brochure distributions to up to 25 outlets.
Okay, so that planning is going to be divided 30 and 20, 30 for the,
Yes,
okay, and 20, 30 for the zoning, 20 for the training.
right.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
So Stacy, we a vote to authorize the filing?
Have to close the
Adjourn. the-
hearing
Okay,
and then enter back in.
so at 10:15, if there are no other comments or questions, we will adjourn the public hearing and go into our meeting.
And then
Jodica, I have a question, and this could just be the complexities of the years. Do you have fiscal year 2021 on that?
didn't check that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it could be, I mean, because
Oh, it's-
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
so I'll make a motion to approve the resolution noting that it's fiscal year 2023.
You missed it last.
Don't sign, don't sign it. I'll
So
take-
last year.
Yep.
Okay.
But you just don't look at things.
21.
There.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking, I see 23 and
Yeah.
I do. I want to second that motion.
Thank you. Ramirez,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Vero.
Yes.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right. County Board of Commissioners stands, we'll recess. Seen until 10:30 when we'll talk about a bid opening for Roxall with engineer Adam Gold. Thank you, Jodica.
Thanks.
See you.
Different world.
It's 10:30 a.m. and it's still Thursday, June 8th. We have a bit of rock salt. We have our engineer Adam Gold with us, and we've got some sealed bids to open up. Any preliminary statements, Adam, before we break open the envelopes?
Again, this is for the county bulk contract for coming winter season. There's, I believe, 17 of the 18 townships that participate and 6 of the municipalities in the county. The total estimated bulk is 12,015 tons, 12015 tons for the estimated quantity for this contract.
Last year's price?
Last year's price was $63.77. And that contract was with Morton.
We were looking for a bond.
And there should hopefully is a tab with the
Index.
bid tab that has one item, rock salt, pitch. And if you could read the unit cost and the total.
Specific page that should be on.
I don't know if there's a page.
I found it.
I'll find that. Could look something like this.
I'm ready when you are, if you want it.
I'm ready.
Morton Salt Inc. Chicago, Illinois. Bid bond. Total bid 828, 914.85.
The unit price.
Oh, man, now you're gonna make me go back.
I specifically said those instructions.
Don't pay attention to that.
I didn't.
Maybe if it was Tom Beck, I would have paid attention.
I thought it was just me.
Is the amount of the bid bond an issue? Do you need to know what that is?
No. Not at this point.
I'm just,
They have one.
I'm
Yes.
not used to Mr. Gove coming up here unless it's about roundabouts, so. The unit cost is 68.99.
Thank you.
Hey, I have Compass Minerals out of Overlook. And the unit price is $64.38. Total price is I'll do it this way, 773,525.70. And that's for 12,015 tons.
Thank you.
I have Cargill of North Olmsted. Also 12,005 tons. Their unit cost is $64.73. So a total of 777,730.95.
All right. Just for comparison, did have the salt contract for the state. And last year's state contract was $52.79. This year's state contract is $55.32. And again, we participate in both the state and the county portion. And then as I mentioned, the rest of the townships and villages and cities take part in the county contract.
So when you say you deal with the state as well as these bidders, right?
Correct.
Buy from both sources.
Yes.
So why can't you go with one, the cheapest of which would be the state, but you don't want to
So,
all your eggs in one basket, so to speak?
yeah, that's how it started. A couple years ago, our county contract was usually less than the state contract. So we did everything under our county contract. And again, a couple years ago, that kind of switched and the state contract was coming in under our prices. So we made the decision to do about 50-50, half in the state contract, half in our county contract. We can move all to the state, not at this particular time because we have to put in a certain amount of quantity for the state contract and a certain amount for the county. And we're able to purchase up to that amount. So we may switch to all state. I would like to keep the county contract going for those townships and villages that need it. The downfall to the state contract is you have to purchase 90% of what you put in. Now you're going to buy 1,000 tons, have to buy 900 of that amount. If you have a light winter, you only use 500, you've got to buy the remaining 400 and find a place to store it. That's always been an issue with the smaller entities.
You don't have that kind of restriction with,
Correct. The county is the more or less contract. You can buy up to 110% of what you've put in as an estimate. No minimum on the county contract.
all right. Carl, any questions?
Which villages, municipalities in the county do not participate?
I believe this year, the only one that didn't is the city of Mansfield, and they do their own contract.
I was gonna ask you to name the ones that did, and I thought, like,
You said 17 of the 18 townships.
Washington Township participates in the state contract.
so. Oh, I had.
If you don't show us, no, you don't.
Al, do you have any questions?
Yeah, in other words, you're kind of doing, the county contract and the state contract, really, that's kind of a hedge, isn't it, Adam? So you're covered no matter how much snow you have and how much salt you have to use, right?
Yeah, we should be covered. The amounts we've put in for both the state and the county. Obviously, we try to purchase the lower cost one first and fill that requirement first, and then we switch to the other one when we need more.
So in other words, you're kind of conservative on the state then.
No, it's pretty much split. I think we did 2,500 ton this year on the state contract and 2,000 on the county contract. If I remember my numbers correctly. As far as the county goes, I mean, the rest of that 12,000 is made up of the townships and villages, municipalities.
Okay, I didn't quite hear the figure for Compass.
Their unit price was $64.38.
Okay. That's the one I needed. I wasn't sure that I had that right because sometimes the sound glitches a little bit. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions? No? Okay, we have an executive session at 10:39, so the Board of Commissioners will stand in recess 6 minutes. 10:45 a.m., the Richland County Board of Commissioners is back in session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Fairbanks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
I'm surprised. Disappointed.
It's 11 o'clock. Could I have a motion to end executive session?
You don't need that.
Need to do that. Okay. Go on to executive session.
Yes.
Back in session at 11:01. I'd like a motion to at the wastewater treatment plant, the superintendent's eligibility for on-call pay
At 75
at
cents.
75 cents an hour.
So moved.
Second,
That'll be effective when?
Effective immediately.
Tomorrow. I just finished, or today, because I just finished payroll. I don't want to have to go back.
Effective as soon as possible.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
yes.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yes.
Al online, anybody online?
I was online.
Hey, Al, do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, hadn't done that before with the superintendent.
No, we had not.
Okay, why did you decide to do that? Because you've been having instances where you need to have somebody on call or?
Yeah, we've had instances where we've had to deal with our new bargaining unit contract where our other maintenance employees were going to receive on-call pay. And in addition to my superintendent having to cover for some of these and deal with after hours, that he should receive the same.
Okay, good enough explanation for me. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
So what employee is getting it? What's the title?
Superintendent.
Okay,
Billy Caudell, who's the superintendent out there.
just checking. All right.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Russell County Board of Commissioners stands adjourned at 11:03 a.m. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.